Welcome back, Inebri-art. I am back recording on Zoom again. I feel like I had a run of some in-person stuff, which was nice. And today we are joined by Meghan Kelleher of Divine Sweater. And I was on your website today, and it looks like I just missed you guys. You guys were just in Boston?
Yes, we were. We just played NISA Fest in Somerville and Davis Square, and it was awesome. It was our
Yeah.
first time playing that, but I would recommend everyone going every year. It's a great event.
I've never even heard of it. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it's new.
there's,
It's
is
new.
it? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
it's only
why.
been a couple years. But this year was the first year with like a outdoor main stage,
Hmm.
which we were so excited to play on, but it was just such a big event this year. Like there were so many people there. But every year I think it just grows and gets more and more traction.
Yeah. What is like what's the vibe there? I know like we have Boston Calling, which is kind of like very mainstream. Right
Hmm.
near here we have Levitate, which is kind of like a reggae 420 kind of vibe. Like what is the vibe that is it Nice Fest? Is that what it was?
Yeah, it's nice, comma, a fest.
Okay.
Uh, and I would say the difference, we also played Boston Calling this year, which was awesome, but I would say the difference is that there's a lot more local artists
Hmm.
playing, and then the headliners have some sort of connection to Boston, like Palehound and Wunderbar, Bay Faction, like the big headliners all had some sort of connection to Boston. And I would say the vibe is a little bit more like indie.
Yeah.
Um, than like mainstream, which is really cool. And obviously is exactly what we do. So
Nice. Do you
yeah.
have a connection to Boston or were you just
Yeah, I'm from Boston.
Oh, really? Like
Yeah.
Boston proper or
So I was born in Southie. My mom's from
okay.
Southie. Grew up in Southie and then moved to Canton,
Hmm.
which is probably close to wherever you are.
I'm in
Uh,
Middleborough. I just didn't go into
yeah.
details because I'm like, oh, she'll never know where Middleborough is.
Yeah. But yeah, and then I like went to BC, lived in Boston for a long time. I live in New York now, but I'm like so back and forth. Like my family's in Boston area, so I'm kind of like half and half. And half our band also lives in Boston too.
Oh, nice,
Yeah.
nice. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Um, so I was listening to your new album, and so I feel like part of my job is to introduce new creative people to new fans. And I'm so old that like when you went into the record store, there was like rock, rap, classic, jazz, country. Like that was it. And so like I mean we're only like 400 and something episodes in, and I've been trying to figure out like what's the best way to kind of like give the idea of what kind of music you play. And for a while I was asking musicians being like, oh, what band would you go on tour that would make sense? And I found that they would give bands that I've never heard of, and I'm like
Mm.
that doesn't really help. So I was listening to like your album this morning, and I'm like, how can I convey, like how can I make this make sense? And so I have like kids. So it's like, my youngest is like, oh, they have a vibe, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, what is the vibe here? And I hope this, like, and this is always like the thing you go out on a limb and you're like, oh, I hope I don't offend somebody. But the vibe I got was like sitting on my porch with a cocktail with like my significant other and maybe another couple and just like hanging out in nice weather. And it was very like mellow, chill. Like, do you think that's a fair like, do you have a like vibe of like where you see people listening to this?
Yeah, I think that that totally fits for a lot of our songs. Yeah, and I think that's such a hard question, and I always have such a hard time answering it as well. Like picking even a genre or a vibe is so challenging. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's a great vibe. I would love to capture that. And yeah, I think other people have said some of our music is like beachy, like something you could, listen to sitting
Yeah.
at the beach, going to the beach. And then I think some music that we're about to put out is like getting a little bit grungier or like more heated and intense, which is yeah, a little bit different and kind of I think a lot of the music we're gonna release going forward and with this album might take us into a new vibe mixed with that
Yeah.
old kind of like easy listening, like dream pop feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the new one that comes out is A Time for Everything on September 13th. It's due out.
Mhm. Yes.
Um, and the I think it's the last song, and it's all letters, but I'm just gonna call it what it is I love you, but fuck you.
Yeah.
Um, and it's all like the initial. I'm dyslexic, so I can't do that in my brain.
Yeah.
But I was listening to it. I'm like, oh my god, like this is like the first song that I heard that's like a real relationship. Where I mean, everyone gets that point where you're just so mad. You're like, thank God I love you because
I know.
I'd kill you right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you can relate to that, and I hope people can as well. But I feel like it's a feeling I've had or like thought in my head, and I was just like, this could be a good song title. So we just went with
Yeah, and I mean
it.
it's so in any relationship, like
Yeah.
um, I've been in relationships where you have those moments where like I just don't want to talk to you right now. Can you go in the other room kind of thing?
Right.
But like my best friend, I could, like I love my best friend, but half the time I want to murder him because he's irritating the
Yep.
shit out of me, and
Yep.
it why do you think that's always glossed over? To me, that's like such a real. I feel like a lot of songs that are written about relationships are more like a sitcom version where it's either like
Yeah.
perfect or terrible.
Right.
This is more real. Like, why do you think people don't do that more often?
Yeah, I don't know. A big theme for this album was like just say what you're thinking and like just say what's happening. I feel like in the past I did a lot of trying to like yeah, like make lyrics like glossy or like make them more like metaphor or just I don't know, trying to make them like poetic lyrics
Mm-hmm.
where like this time around I have a notes app where I just or I have like a note in my notes app where like I wanted to just write down like exactly what I was thinking or a phrase that someone said that that I hear all the time in daily life, but that I was like, I wanted to just like write things that were real and that were happening. So that was a challenge. And I think a lot of artists struggle with that. I think a lot of people like want to make these really profound lyrics or like something that's, yeah, really glossy, really poetic instead of just saying what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's where that came from is just like this exercise for this whole album of me being like, what is happening? Just write it down and just like say it how it is. So
Yeah, and it's like I feel it's a very I feel like it's kind of a very common thing in a lot of creative fields where like people try to explain too much or be too detailed, and like I hear a lot of bands where like you can't really sing along because they're just trying to like put too much into like a verse, and you're like,
right,
sometimes people just want to say tequila.
right. They do.
It's one word and it's a great song.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah, and I think also it's just easy to overthink it. It's easy to be like, so and so, this like really successful band has like this type of lyric, or like a band like I love like Big Thief, and they have these like incredible like poetic lyrics, and it's easy to get caught up and be like, oh, I love that band, I want to write like them. But then at the end of the day, like you can't do that. You have to just write about your own life and like write in your own voice. So that's definitely where that song came from. But then also just like a lot of this album was just me trying to be direct and real.
Yeah. Do you are you one of those people that are very direct in real life, or is this kind of like a new experience in general?
No, I would say I'm not. I feel like I'm just like I don't know, people pleasy. And I think when you're in a band too, like a lot of times you just are catering to so many people, like whether you're trying to or not. So I think, yeah, I did a lot of like, especially with lyrics and, content we've made in the past, it was, very revised or like I was really overthinking it. So I think that, yeah, this was just like a good exercise to try to not do that. But yeah, I would say like some of these lyrics are more honest than maybe I would say in
Yeah.
day-to-day life normally.
And that's like such the trick is, I know people be like, oh, I just say it like it is, or I have no filter. I'm like, no, you're an asshole. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like
Totally.
you can say it like it is in a nice way.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, oh man, what was it? My youngest does some work for us, and So I sent them a text the other day and I'm like, I like this. This needs to be changed. And this is also good. And they're like, wow, compliment sandwich, huh? And I'm like, come on, man. Like, you know, I try to
Yeah,
be nice, you know?
right. Yeah.
D Is there like it fascinates me people that work in a band for an extended period of time because I'm like, I have one business partner and
Mhm.
that and in and of itself is a challenge. Like how do you navigate that and say what you want to say and not be people pleasy and
Yeah, that's really, really hard. Well, but I will say is like the best thing about our band is that we genuinely are five like best friends and we've been friends for a very long time. Um, so our guitarist and drummer have been playing together since high school. Our
Mhm.
keyboardist and bassist have been playing together since high school, like separately.
Okay.
And then I've been friends with them all for such a long time. So I do feel like this is sound so corny, but like the power of friendship is like a huge thing in Divine Sweater, and so many bands like break up because it's hard. Like you don't make a ton of money, you are like on the road in small cars with each other for a long time. You all have creative ideas and sometimes those clash. And everyone like cares so much about it. So it's hard, but I really think that's like the best thing about our band and that has really pushed like so much of our success is just that we really are friends and we're like committed to making this happen.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that we all have just grown to have like tough skin. Like I think we can be direct in like a band setting, like when we're practicing or when we're writing. I think that that is like a really safe space where we're direct. And obviously sometimes like, sometimes we could like obviously tension build sometimes and things like that. But for the most part, like we take feedback well and just have gotten really tough skin and gotten really good at being direct or like asking, questions about like why people want to play something one way or like asking questions about a song that we're writing, things like that. So friendship is so, so important to us as a band.
And the tough skin is really something I feel like a lot of creative people hit a wall because they don't have tough skin and they
Yeah.
can't they can't hear an honest thing. And I love that you said, like we're both or all trying to like move in the right direction. I can't remember
Yeah.
exactly what you said, but I've had that where I've had to pull creative partners into the office and be like, listen, we both want this to be good.
Right.
That's where we're starting from. And like now let's talk about like your opinion on how to do it and my opinion, but like let's bear in mind we want the same thing. And
Totally.
it's
Yeah. And I
great. It's
think,
awesome. I love having those conversations.
yeah, it's great. And I think like for us as a band, like I'm so grateful for the four guys in my band because like there's not really like even a question. Like it's like we know that we're all on the same page and like this is what we want. And so like being direct with each other is like, I don't know, it's just part of it. It's part of like getting there. But yeah, so I'm so, so grateful and like lucky that the five of us are like so close and committed to the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And based on your website, can you even hear that?
A little bit, but
Oh,
barely.
okay. Oh, only a little. It's
Only a
loud
little,
here.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I'll keep going. Um, but oh, it looks like you're in the middle of a tour. Like
Hmm.
it's weird. Like you're touring before the album comes out. Is that
We've had a couple like festivals before the
okay?
album comes out. So we played Boston Calling on the main stage, which was like incredible, best weekend of my life. I got to go backstage for Chapel Roan, which I don't know if anything's gonna top that in my whole life. But then also Nice Fest, which was incredible. And then we're playing Music Fest in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania
Hmm.
in a couple weeks. And then our like proper, I guess, tour where everything's like one after the other
Yeah.
will start right after we release the album.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So it's just festival season. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you're playing Boston Calling, do you have to like, anytime like I have friends that are doing something big, whether it's um, I just had a friend play the South Shore Melody Tent down here, which is like a big venue on Cape Cod,
Yeah.
and or even just like when friends get married or have a baby, I'm like, you have to like intentionally set aside like a moment, like 2 minutes, and just be like, hey, and just be in that moment and like and
Right.
appreciate it because it goes by so fast.
Oh my God, yeah. It was like 2 seconds. I felt like we were on the stage for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many
It
people were in
was
the audience? Was that the largest audience you played for?
Yeah, definitely. And we played first. So we were like, yeah, the first band of the whole festival. And so we definitely had people who like were our fans who were there for us, but then we also kind of got this benefit of like we no one else was playing at the same time as us. So
Mm-hmm.
that was just awesome. And like I think we
Oh, that's
definitely
cool.
got
Yeah.
yeah. And I think for the rest of the festival, like people are overlapping for
Mm-hmm.
almost all of it. So we got really lucky there that we definitely like got to make some new fans in that way.
That's cool. Like I was when you said you went on first, I was worried that like there was like I I hate when people I don't want to say intentionally skip the opening act, but
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
went and saw God this Jesus longer than I realized, but several years ago I went and saw Guns N' Roses when they started touring again. And I was so mad at the group that I was with because they were like lollygagging. And I'm like, Lenny Kravitz is opening. What are we doing?
Oh my
Let's go.
God.
I'm like, we're missing Lenny.
Huge. That's a
Yeah,
huge opener.
I
Yeah,
know.
I'm always like that's like one of my biggest pet peeves too. Like I always want to be there for a show like at the opener. It's so important. And it's been like so important for us to be openers for bigger bands. And it's like such a big deal like
Hmm.
for you as a band. And so yeah, definitely. If anyone is listening and ever thinking of not going to the opener for no reason, you should go.
Yeah, and I feel like I've been introduced to so many cool bands. Like
Yeah.
one of my go-to listening in the car bands. I went and saw Blog and Molly and Go Go Bordello,
Yeah.
and this band opened up for them. And like I've never heard of them. They're called I don't think I've talked about them on the podcast for a while, so I'll do it. Mariachi El Bronx.
Oh,
So it's a hardcore band out of California, and their guitarist showed up one day and was like, "I want to do a mariachi album," and they're like, "All right." And they put out three, and they're not hardcore mariachi; they're just straight mariachi,
oh wow.
and they're so good. Like I was just, they were so small in comparison to like other bands. Like they actually like loaded their own equipment on and off stage, so it was just like,
Wow.
wow, it was. But I would have never known if I was just like, nah, we can go in late and skip the
Right.
opener.
Yeah, that's so cool. I gotta look them up. But yeah, I totally agree. Like so many of my favorite bands I've seen like opening for someone and then, it's so cool when you see someone opening for a really big band and then like 2 years later they're like headlining the same place and like that's such a cool moment and it's so cool to like be part of a band's journey
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. I mean, even on a bigger scale, going even further back, I went and saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers
Yeah.
eons ago. And I turned to my buddy for the opening band. I'm like, who is this again? He goes, oh, the lead singer used to be the drummer for Nirvana. And I'm like, oh,
Oh,
cool.
that's funny.
And now I'm like, you can't get Foo Fighter tickets. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
it's so silly. But it's
That's
just,
so funny.
yeah.
Oh.
Um, do you, I mean, obviously you play a fair amount of festivals. Have you had any disasters? There was one in Connecticut that happened not too long, like 2 weeks ago, shouldn't say happened, almost sort of kind of happened. I don't know. There's a whole lawsuit and an issue.
Oh
Yeah, I've
no.
been kind of following for morbid reasons, but
Oh.
um, yeah, I didn't even know about it, and then I saw people starting to post about it, and it was like the venue changed to like over an hour away. It was like a 3 day thing, and then
Oh
half the
no.
bands dropped. I mean, it's like fraud lawsuit kind of thing.
Oh.
So it's they're calling it like the Fire Festival of Connecticut, but
Oh
like,
wow.
have you had any like horror shows?
No, we haven't, and that's really lucky, but we haven't. We really had like such good experiences. Like this summer has been awesome playing both of those Boston-based festivals and they were like incredible experiences. So no horror stories yet, I'm sure eventually,
Yeah,
but
they'll happen, I'm sure. But that's great. And I mean, even I mean, sometimes it's just like in the bad situations, you just kind of have to like, and it's hard to set aside like things that are beyond your control.
Yeah.
We had a small event that we did at a brewery like a week and a half ago, and it's crucial that we had power, not a big
Yeah.
deal. And then the power went out,
Oh my God.
like the whole play, and like they were like questioning whether they're going to shut down the, brewery entirely. And all these people had like half made projects, and you're like, and they're like, what do we do if the power doesn't come back on? I'm like, I don't know, man. This has never happened. And
Yeah.
it's, and you try to have a solution for the next time. But I mean, it's just things that are
Yeah.
beyond. Yeah.
Sometimes
So,
things just happen.
yeah. So you said you're kind of moving, or was it an intentional move towards like a grungier sound, or,
I think like honestly just our life changed. Like our yeah, so we
and is grunge
raised
coming back? Is that like a, because I'm
I don't know.
totally cool with that.
I would say grungy as like a vibe, not a genre, is
Yeah.
kind of like where some of our songs are living. But yeah, I think our lives just had a lot of change. Like a lot of the album is kind of just, I don't know, getting to the age where you're like really wrestling with morality. And then also we moved, we were in Boston and like some of us moved to New York and like then just being in New York is just like this totally different place with like such a different everyday vibe and kind of like so much chaos all the time. And so I think that a lot of the songs just are set in this place and in that like kind of challenging transition time. Um, and we're just kind of like talking about, I guess, darker things that are going on. And so I think that the songs just kind of followed that vibe wise, but then obviously still stayed true to the sort of like dreamy vibe that we've had before. And then obviously we have a lot of sense of humor in our lyrics in our live show and just like our social media presence, everything like that. Like you have to have a sense of humor probably to like us.
Yeah.
So there's that sort of sprinkled in even on the songs that are about heavier things.
I feel like there's a certain, I'm gonna say Boston because it's a Boston area kind of sense of humor that I feel like I dated a girl from Ohio, and she's like, "You're so mean to your friends." I'm like, "I love my friends," and she's like, "You're so mean to them." I'm like, "I'm not mean to them," and she's like, "You called one of them blah 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 the other day," and I'm like, "Oh, I mean, I was being an idiot." Like,
Yeah.
is it different in New York, or like, do you agree that there's that kind of like we're very sarcastic and like
Oh yeah.
that's mean. I guess we're mean to each other. I always say to
Yeah.
people, I'm like, if I'm nice to you, then that should tell you something.
Right. Yeah. I do think that's true. But like in a loving way. I just think like tough
Yeah,
love is
yeah, yeah,
part
yeah.
of
Like
tough love's part of
it's
the experience.
like it's one of those things I always tell people. I'm like, if I meant it, I would never say it as a joke.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
And also, yeah, I feel like a lot of times, yeah, I don't know, it's just in how people interact with each other, making jokes, being sarcastic. That's just when you grow up here, that's just how people interact.
But do you find that the same in New York? Because I mean, New York and Boston are fairly close proximity
Yeah.
wise.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's some of that there too. And I think a lot of my friends in New York are like from a bunch of different places. So yeah, I have like a lot of friends from Ohio, um, and just like other parts of the
Ohio people are
country.
weird. I'm just gonna say
Oh, they're the best. They're so
that.
nice.
Are they?
They're so nice. I feel like they're like incredibly, incredibly nice. Or at least people I know from Ohio.
Yeah.
But
I shouldn't say
yeah,
that. We
but
get a
people
lot of
are
downloads in Ohio. Listen, I had one bad experience with someone from Ohio. I shouldn't judge all Ohioans, I guess. But
yeah, some of my favorite people from Ohio. But either way, like yeah, people are from all these different places. So I think it is funny when people start pointing out like the way you say things, the way you pronounce things, like a kind of sarcastic tone you have when they're from a place that is different. So
yeah, yeah, we did. One of our other shows is kind of all about like, um, the Plymouth and surrounding areas. So like we did a whole episode about the vocabulary of the area.
yeah.
And you know, geez, oh, the Packy is one that
Oh, the
comes to
Packy,
mind.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
because I've had people be like, "That's racist," and you're like, "What?" And they're like, "Just because they're Pakistani." I'm like, "No, man, it's the package store. Like
Package
that's
store.
yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, there's so many and like I was saying like my mom grew up in Southie and like just so many words that are with the Boston accent I didn't even like realize I have been doing my whole life until other people pointed them
Then,
out to me.
yeah,
Like I remember like my mom calling the living room like the parlor, like the parlor,
Hala,
the
yeah.
parlor. And I just remember like going to other people's houses and be like, oh, like, are we gonna hang out in the parlor? And they're like, the parlor, what is that? And so it's just a funny thing to notice that you're doing.
I was hanging out with some friends, and my buddy was living in Chicago at the time and had flown back home with his girlfriend who was from Chicago. We're all sitting around talking, and I'm like, oh, I was over, because everyone's Massachusetts, everyone's got a nickname. So I'm like, oh, I was over Buka's, and we were playing poker and blah 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 blah. And like after about 5 minutes, his girlfriend's just like, oh, and we're like, what? She's like, I thought you were in a band, and I'm like, what? She thought I was saying polka.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, and it's just I'm like, wow, was I really? And I feel like I lean into that Boston accent the more I've had to drink.
Interesting. It just
Yeah,
comes out.
it just comes out, and I don't even think I have it that thick in general, but
Yeah.
I've had a few drinks and it like really comes out.
Yeah, there was once one of the first single that we put out for this album, I kept having to say the word particles. Like that was just like one of the lyrics, but there's like one of the times that I say it where I didn't even realize I was doing it, but it just came out so Boston. It was like literally sounds like I'm saying particles.
Particles.
I did
Yeah.
not mean to do that. It just happened. I don't know how.
Then can you not hear that
Oh yeah,
now?
now every time I hear it, I'm like, what was happening?
Yeah. Now I'm gonna go back and listen to that song. I
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah, that's it's so funny. Do your it accents are really interesting in singing because like I feel like
Yeah.
there's so many singers that just lose their accent entirely.
Yeah.
Is that like part of the training to sing? Were you like did you were you
Oh,
I don't want to say
no.
professionally. It's the word I'm
No.
looking for. Traditionally, were you traditionally trained or were you just kind of do it
No.
on your own?
No, I wasn't. No, and so I'm not sure what like the real, advice would be for people who are professionally trained in that, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying things how I say them.
So how did you decide? I mean, I suppose there's a lot of self-trained musicians, but did you at what point were you like, oh, I'm just gonna do this without, you know,
Yeah,
classes or
yeah, it just kind of happened. So my uncle is like an incredible musician and I grew up going to like all of his shows like at like bars and like Irish Cultural Center and like just all over the place.
hmm
And he's just like incredible and he's so good at guitar and such a good singer. And so he has been like super helpful to me my whole life. Like he would record stuff of like me and my sister singing when we were little and put it on cassettes and like he helped
oh,
us
that's
get our
cool.
first guitar and like all that stuff. So I feel like I learned a lot from him just like informally. Um and then like in high school and stuff I did like singing groups and things
hmm
like that. And then in college, which is when I met um like Sean and Chris from my band, I was in like a music club where I was like playing a lot, like doing a lot of open mic type stuff and like like singer-songwriter competitions and
hmm
we did battle the bands and all that. So I feel like it was a lot of you know, like informal training, like having to do it over and over and over again and
Yeah.
realize when, what works and what doesn't. But I definitely feel like taking singing lessons like now as someone who's like, playing all the time is really helpful just to like know how to protect my voice and how to like correct small things that like I didn't even notice I was doing. So
hmm
I definitely like have taken a couple of those and will like continue to do that just as help for, before you go on a tour where you're playing like 12 nights in a row. It's like good to
Yeah.
get some feedback. But
Yeah, I've even reached out to some bands to interview, and they're like, "Oh, well, the guitarist can do it. The lead singer doesn't do interviews because they're saving their voice, that
yeah.
kind of stuff." And you're like, "Oh,
Hmm.
yeah, I guess that would be a thing."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's so much stuff like that I'm learning that you really need to do to protect your voice. Like, and I'm sure you see sometimes like the biggest bands ever have to cancel shows because their singer just lost their voice. And
yeah,
huge fear of mine. So,
Yeah, and I love that you're like, oh, I'm going to take classes now. Um, just going back a bit, but like during the lockdown of
mm,
COVID, I got to interview a soap opera actress, and she's been
whoa,
playing the same character. I think it was like 38 years.
wow.
And she was like, well, I don't mean to cut this short, but I have to go. I have class. I'm like, oh, you're teaching class? She's like, no, I'm taking a class. And I was
Yeah,
like, 38 years in the same character. Why are you taking a class? She's like, well, you always have to keep learning. And I was
yeah.
just like, oh, I fucking love that, man.
I
Like,
know, it's true. It really is true. And there's like so much to learn about singing. Like there's an infinite amount of different things to learn about it, and it's not as clear as just like you just sound how you sound. Like that's just not true.
yeah.
So I think um yeah, it's definitely something I'm just gonna keep working on forever.
To me, and this is someone who's never taken a class, and I only sing in my car, but I feel like it would be really like hard because if you're playing guitar, it's your finger goes here, your finger goes
Right.
there, you strum this way. But like singing, it's all internal. So it's like, how
Hmm.
do you explain like, no, no, do this with your diaphragm? Be like, I don't know what you're
Yes.
doing. Is it?
I know.
That's got
Yeah,
to
and
be really hard.
it's so many different things happening at once. Like it's so much about like your breath, like how you're breathing and all this other stuff. It's like a whole kind of um like magic potion of things that you need to do in order to sound your best.
Hmm.
So that's cool to learn about, and I think I'll just keep learning about that for a long
That's
time.
cool. Do you find that like when you're on tour, I feel like my drawing was never better than when I was in school because I was doing it like 8 hours a day.
Mm.
Do you feel like when you're on tour that like you kind of hit a sweet spot, like where you've like really, I don't want to say broken your voice, but like you're in game shape, or I
Oh
guess,
yeah,
or
totally.
like
100%. And I think as a band, we really hit a stride when we're touring. And yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense. It's like if you mess something up, you then have like an opportunity the next night to fix it. Or if there's something that is like interesting that we want to try out that we've never tried before, like it's a great opportunity to do that because you have so many shows in a row. But yeah, we just totally hit a stride and we get really like yeah, good muscle memory going from the shows before. I think like vibes are good,
mhm.
so it's been great to tour. I think it like we are at our peak when we're doing that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's like the dream. Like that's what
Yeah.
every band wants to do. And
Hmm.
I mean, granted, probably the dream is like I was on my private jet to the tour,
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
but it, it, when you travel on tour, is it like a van? Like how? Because to me, that's also one of those like, all right, this is could be a make or break part of a band. Like if
Oh
you
yeah, big
handle
time.
the travel part of it, like who who
Yep.
who controls the radio? Like what do you do to pass time? Like how do you
Hmm.
kind of maintain that?
Yeah, so we usually take two cars,
Okay.
and that's good just like because the rides are so long, and it's good to just kind of like shuffle who's in what car. If someone we all have like an introverted side, if someone's like I really just kind of want to do a solo ride, then we like send someone alone in a car. It's a good way to kind of just like break up the time and like switch up what's like what it feels like because yeah, the rides are so long and they kind of all blend together.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we like to have a lot of fun on tour. One thing we love doing is if our hotel has a pool, like if we set like a Marriott with pool, we
Yeah.
spend so much time in the pool. We like build our day around it, and we just like have fun like little kids on vacation in the hotel pool. So that's like a fun thing that we do to bond, and like we love finding new like restaurants and bars and things in places that we've never been. So we definitely have a lot of fun together, and that's again such a bonus and such a game changer for us that we like each other and our friends and
Yeah.
are having fun on these trips together.
Yeah. And it's like friendship is definitely big, but it's just one of those. It kind of makes me think of like in a relationship where you're like, oh, we're moving in together, and you're like, oh, well, good luck, because that's
Yeah.
always like the key moment
Hmm.
of is it or isn't it going to work?
Yeah.
But yeah. So you don't like kind of do you do the touristy kind of thing like when you
Sometimes, yeah, like last tour we went to Louisville and we went to like the Louisville Slugger Museum
oh
and
the bat?
yeah, saw like the biggest
Okay.
bat ever. And yeah, we do like fun stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
Like I have like the best sweatshirt that I own is from the Louisville Slugger Museum. It's like a just like a great sweatshirt that I wear all the time, but it was a great memory to go there and do a
Yeah.
little bit of a touristy thing. It kind of depends though, like it depends what time we have to be at a sound check or how tired we are from like the drive, but
Sure.
if we ever get like an extra night in a place, it's so awesome because a lot of times you're just like playing, sleeping, leaving, playing, sleeping, leaving.
Yeah.
You have an extra day in between or like a couple hours to go explore. It's like it's just an awesome way to see places.
Yeah. We ran our first horror convention last year here in Plymouth, and we flew in some actors from Scream and Resident Evil, and they're like, all right, I want to fly out of there first thing Sunday morning, whatever, and you're like, all right, whatever, and you book their flights and whatnot, and then both of them were like, I wish I knew like what Plymouth was like because I would have flown out Sunday night and hung
Right.
out and kind of you know
Totally.
did the downtown thing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
said you love finding restaurants. You a bit of a foodie or
Yeah, well, I think as a band, we like going out to eat, but three, I would say three members of the band are like incredible cooks.
oh really? Okay.
Yeah, and so they also sometimes like we get in situations like if we have an Airbnb or something like they love chefing it up and they make like the most delicious food ever. Um, so that's really
That's like a
fun.
bonus for you.
I know it's such a bonus. It's such a bonus for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think we all just love checking out new restaurants, seeing like what are, the best restaurants in whatever city we're going to and just like trying to check them out. Two of us are vegetarian, which does pose a challenge sometimes, but we always figure it out.
Is one of those you?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I won't
My
hold it against you.
drummer. Yeah. My drummer, Chris is a vegetarian too, but he's like an incredible, incredible cook. So he's mastered how to be a great chef, even though you don't eat meat.
A really good friend of mine, who's an amazing chef, like he works as a chef, is a
Yeah.
vegetarian, and I mean, he just whatever you want, like he's phenomenal at making it. And I always give him a hard time, like I can't believe a vegan can do this. He's like, I'm a vegetarian. I'm like, whatever. It's like the same thing. He's like, I love cheese. I'm like, whatever, man.
That's exactly how I feel. I'm always like, no, cheese is still a big part of my life.
Is it a like what made you go? I know this is completely off topic, but I find
No.
this very interesting. Um, what what made you go vegetarian?
I just like honestly, I've been a vegetarian for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then before that I was like very often on vegetarian and to be honest, like I feel like it's easy for me because I didn't really enjoy meat that much to begin with. I think if I was someone that really loved it, I think it would be harder and like maybe I
Yeah,
wouldn't be vegetarian, but yeah, I don't know. It's just like something my whole life, just like I think since I was like little kid being like, I love animals. Like I don't even know. I think that's really where it came from. And then
yeah,
it just has stuck and that's just how I've lived for a long time. But
yeah. It's interesting, and this is a few people that I know that are just like, yeah, I just have always kind of done that. Like I
yeah,
didn't really like steak or chicken or whatever. And
right.
it's like, oh, weird.
Yeah. And I
Not
just,
weird, I
yeah, I
shouldn't
feel
say
like
weird. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just so it feels like almost like a childish thought to say now, but it's like, yeah, I just always had a weird problem or like aversion to eating animals. And so that's just, I don't know, it's just stuck. But then again, eating a lot of cheese, so eating a lot of eggs. So I don't know if my
Yeah, like I mean,
morals are lined up there, but
I mean, cheese is very pass. Like, and you're not hurting the animal by making cheese necessarily. Like, if you're a big factory farm, I mean, probably. But yeah.
yeah.
Um, so Back on topic. So a time for everything, September
Uh-huh.
13th.
Mhm.
Where can people go and get it?
So, a couple places. All of our music um, will be released on any streaming platform. So, wherever you listen to music, you can see the first two singles that we've put out. The third one is coming out in a couple of days. And then we have a couple more before September 13th.
I think you have a couple videos out on YouTube, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a couple of videos as well. And then also on our website, divinesweater.com, everything will always be posted there. But there's a link right now to pre-order our vinyl. It's the first time we're pressing vinyl. So you can pre-order that on the website, and that'll be sent as soon as it comes out. And then, yeah, everything else will just be released on our website, on any streaming platform. Obviously, a lot of content will be on social media once it's out as well. And I would say following us on social media is the best way to keep track of us. Our website is always going to be updated too, but social media pages like our Instagram is a great place to know like whenever we're playing a show. And then also I think just to get a feel for like us as a band and our personality, we do a lot of posting content on there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of why I do this. I like to people to kind of be like, oh, like I totally relate to that person. I'm gonna go check out their album.
Yeah.
So your first vinyl, that's
Mhm.
exciting. So I'm kind of at this point where I am teetering on an addiction because I know who I am.
The
So I'm
vinyl.
like, I kind of want to buy some vinyl, but I'm like, I know who I am. If I buy one vinyl, it's going to be like a
Vinyl.
bajillion of them.
Yeah.
Are you a big vinyl person, or is this just like what people want?
Yeah, I think it's both. I like having vinyl. I think as a band, it's like it's so funny how far away we've gotten from physical like music
Yeah.
and streaming platforms are like awesome because it's really, helpful for the masses to listen to you
Hmm.
and to like understand your music and to like follow you and all of that. But I just think it was important for us to have some sort of physical music
Yeah.
as well to sell for like when we're on tour and then also like through our website. But I think that for me, like as someone who has vinyl, I'm like choosing so carefully which vinyl I buy because they're expensive. And
And if
I
you
just think
move,
that
they're
that's
heavy.
they're heavy, they're expensive, they
Yeah.
take up space. But like I don't know, you have a different relationship with a band, I think, when you have their physical music and also like when you have their merch. Like if you have like a sweatshirt with a band or a t-shirt with a band, like you just have this sort of like different, maybe more like permanent relationship with them.
Yep.
So I put a lot of effort into like our merch and making sure that, yeah, now that we have physical music as well, because I think it's like a different step that a fan can take with a band.
Yeah. And I'm an art person.
Yeah,
So like vinyl art, you're never gonna get that image short of a poster bigger than that.
right.
And like if you are at a gig and you buy a vinyl, they're perfect to get the band to sign. There's plenty of room.
Totally.
They're kind of perfect in that way.
Yeah, they're
Um,
really awesome.
but they're heavy, and that's all I'm trying to remember is they're heavy.
They are heavy. They are
And
heavy.
but even listening on vinyl, I think is a bigger commitment. You're more
Mhm.
involved in it. Like
Right.
turn Spotify on, whatever. I can just even be like, Alexa, play blah blah blah, and
Right.
then it's just in the background. But like vinyl, you gotta like pick out the one you want. You're gonna look at the art, and you're gonna like put it
Hmm.
on and carefully put the needle down. So it's
Right.
just like so much more of a experience than just putting music on.
Totally. And like listening to a whole album is so different too. Like I'm a big albums person because
Hmm.
I just keep making these albums and so I like know how much thought and like care goes into like which song goes first and like what's the right order of these and there's such like a narrative that I just love listening to other people's albums and I know that so many people don't do that and so I feel like a vinyl is like a good little way for people
Yeah,
to like actually listen to the album start to finish in the
the way it
correct
was
order.
intended. Yeah, yeah,
Right. And I just like don't think that happens enough. So
I
yeah.
agree. And I will say when I put your album on this morning, I put it on while I was answering emails and whatnot, and it was one of those where I was like, oh shit, it's over. Like it really kind of just like I don't say felt like a short period of time because I don't know if that's really the right thing,
Yeah.
but like it was. at no point was I like, oh, I'm gonna take this, like I
Right.
get what they're about and shut it off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a really great album. You guys should be proud.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm excited about it too.
Yeah. And thank you for coming on the show, man. This was
Yeah.
great. Always nice to talk to a Boston, not sort of Bostonian
Yeah.
Canton person.
Yeah.
Um, so if we sound funny, we both sound funny.
Yes, totally.
Awesome. So listeners, go check out Divine Sweater. They're going to be on tour, hopefully coming to a town near you. Check out their album A Time for Everything, September 13th, and we'll see you guys again next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at inebriart.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at inebriart.com. So thanks again for listening.